Welcome, you're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. One of India's most prestigious and reputed companies, Infosys, is under the scanner again. A whistleblower complaint has alleged wrongdoing by the CEO of the company, Salil parekh, and the CFO, Nilanjan Roy. Charges range from dressing up revenue to hiding material information from auditors, essentially to boost the stock price. The stock has taken a hammering since these allegations came to light, and now law firms based in the US are looking at the possibility of a class action suit. Back home, Infosys chairman Nandan Nilekani has promised a thorough internal investigation by the audit committee. If this is sounding familiar, it's because the company saw a similar situation about 2 years ago when another whistleblower complaint saw then CEO Vishal Sikka exit and Nandan Nilekani come back to Infosys to essentially steady the ship. Can Nandan save Infy again? And what's going on at India's bellwether IT company? To speak on all of this, I'm joined today by Prabal Basu Roy, Management Advisor, Shailesh Haribhakti, Chairman of Haribhakti and Company, Sriram Subramaniam, MD of InGovern Research Services, and Senior Journalist Madhavan Narayanan. I'm also joined by my colleague Chandra Srikanth, who has spent several years tracking Infosys. She's joining me now from the UK. But Chandra, just to give us, the benefit of your insight into how Infosys works, a second set of whistleblower complaints in about 2 years or so. What is going wrong at Infosys?
It's very difficult to say at this point. We have to wait for the audit committee findings to find out, if these are frivolous complaints, if there is more to this. But clearly, Nandan Nilekani's plan to make Infosys a boring company, that was one of his statements when he took charge as chairman 2 years back, has not taken off the way he expected. A lot of questions being asked on why Infosys did not proactively disclose this earlier, considering this letter was written a month back. A statement often attributed to Infosys founder N.R. Narayan Murthy is, when in doubt, disclose. Why did they leave it till the last minute? Even yesterday, despite the ADR taking such a hammering, why did they not proactively send out the detailed statement that they sent out today? It could have perhaps saved tens of thousands of crores that got destroyed today in the share market. So a lot of questions being asked at this point, but I think we really have to await the audit committee findings. Remember, there are multiple allegations. One, of course, is on the contracts, the way they've been structured. There are other important things with respect to Salil Parekh's travels, his green card, and also not so pleasant remarks that he made against board members.
Yeah.
So irrespective of all this, he will have to address those issues as well.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. But that's the thing, Chandra. That's the thing. So we're putting out details of all of those bits from the whistleblower complaint. The one very key question you raised is, why did they wait for it to surface? They should maybe have disclosed it themselves. The other point is about Nandan, and give us some insight here, because Nandan came back essentially to steady the ship a couple of years ago after the last set of whistleblower complaints which saw Vishal Sikka exit. And he has managed to do that so far. Do you think now Nandan will have to sort of push his goodwill and his reputation to ensure that brand Infosys is not, tarnished beyond a point?
A lot of at stake here. It's not just brand Infosys, but brand Nandan Nilekani. Because remember, he was very reluctant to come back to Infosys. He had crafted a path for himself as the architect of Aadhaar. He's pretty much the CIO of India today. He has his hand in every important government IT project, be it GST, be it Aadhaar, be it UPI. So he wanted a different legacy for himself, but he was forced to return after the crisis a couple of years back because institutional investors believed that it's only Nandan Nilekani who can now save the ship. So a lot of a lot at stake now, not just for Infosys, more importantly for Nandan Nilekani. He will not want his reputation, his brand to be tarnished in the process. He returned reluctantly to Infosys to steady the ship. His plan was perhaps to, make it stable for a couple of years, 3 years,
Yeah.
and then leave the company again. That was the plan. Now, will he have to postpone his stay at Infosys? These are crucial questions that need to be asked at this point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chandra, joining us with that perspective. Let me get on to the debate now and speak to our panelists on how they see all of this panning out. Mr. Roy, is it challenge of management, and how do you think Infosys should handle this at this point? Even the point that my colleague Chandra raised right at the beginning, that should they have been seen to be proactive and come out with these details instead of letting it leak through and emerge through the system?
Well, Tamanna, any thoughtful dissection of this letter will show that there are multiple issues in this, and obviously the solutions will differ. So let me just take you through what I think are some of the issues which are there, and there are strategic issues and there are operational issues as well. So in the operations ones first, which is because that's the core of the letter. See, the first bucket is on the accounting and financial statements. Now in that, there are certain policy deviations which have taken place. Policies and internal controls to do with large bid reviews and all, which are very good internal control systems to have. But somebody has decided to move on from there. Now, being the CEO, he could say that I've just changed the policy. So there's nothing external or legal which something can be done about this. Secondly, on the treasury and risk management part, they have decided to increase the risk profile of the treasury operations for short-term profits.
Yeah.
Again, it's not an illegal thing. A CEO can decide. The point is they've hidden this from the board. I think that is the more substantive point. The third one is more serious, which is to do with not recognizing costs.
Yeah.
And the fourth one is to do with revenue recognition. And these have legal implications. Though within the boundaries of the law, for both costs and revenue recognition, there is some leeway is available depending on how it is justified. So depending on the case, we'll have to see that. There is some leeway, but these have revenue implications. And most importantly, for the thing about not recognizing costs, you see there are two parts to it. One is understatement of costs, and the other is deferment of costs. In understatement is serious, it's criminal, because ultimately it will go back to at some point of embezzlement of cash. That I don't think is the case here. So if it's deferment, on a case-to-case basis, somebody could take a certain view. Again, we'll have to see that. So that is the accounting and financial part of it. The second part of it is, of course, to do with hiding information from the board.
Exactly.
I mean, that is again an internal matter, but a very serious matter which the board will have to decide. And that is to do with governance, it is to do with how much transparent you are and all of that.
No, but it's also to do with...
Third issue is to do with, of course, with materiality. As of today, we do not know.
Yes.
Materiality, right? We don't know who the whistleblowers are, how senior they are in the organization, how pervasive this is across the organization. We don't know that. Now, they could be just a business unit team, it could be the corporate finance, it could be some junior officer, we don't know that. So, materiality will make a lot of difference in this entire thing, how pervasive this is. And fourth, of course, is the fact that they decided to take low margin orders. I mean, that is a business decision. The only caveat there is that, when you take low margin orders or zero margin orders, they ultimately show up in your profits. In Infosys, it is not done so yet because of the size, I guess. But in Satyam, do remember, it was there that finally everything blew out.
Yeah, but I want to add a couple of perspectives to this.
Whole tangent of going for short-term profits is the problem.
Yeah, but that's an allegation right now. That's an allegation right now. And as I come to the rest of the
ahead.
panelists,
Please,
I want to just request everyone to keep their responses brief so we can move between talking points throughout the show. Mr. Hari Bhakti, so we don't know yet whether there has been any illegality committed. The fact is that the company's internal audit committee will look at the wrong and right of this. But the damage has been done to trust. Today, shareholders essentially don't trust what the company has said, which is why they have dumped the stock. They don't believe perhaps the trustworthiness has come down. And do you think that's the biggest hit, Mr. Haribhai?
Well, I think we should view this as an instant reaction to the information that has been put out in public domain. I don't think I would reach the conclusion that the trust has been lost. I have known both Nandan Nilekani and Rupa Kudwa, who I believe heads the audit committee, and both of them are completely intolerant of any transgression of ethics or of compliance. I would want to wait for the audit committee's thorough investigation, for which they may even look at deploying forensic studies and making sure that the recordings and the other things which are alleged to have been brought in as the basis for the whistleblower complaint are not fabricated. And I would say that there will have to be a complete thorough investigation to make sure that the truth finally comes out. I would hold my opinion on the shareholder reaction. For all you know, if this turns out to be either fabricated or untrue, the reaction will reverse.
Okay, so we don't know if it's fabricated, we don't know if it's untrue, but we do know, and let me just quickly come to Madhavan over here, we do know that the last time this happened, not the exact same thing, but when there was a whistleblower complaint, we saw a CEO exit, then we saw an internal sort of an audit which gave the CEO a clean chit. Or you know, the allegations were proven wrong as per that internal audit. Then Nandan comes on board and he says, I do not want to release these details because it will hurt the company. My only simple limited point being, there is already a precedent of limited disclosure of information. Is that warranted with the size and reputation of a company like Infosys?
Absolutely. I think you have hit the nail on the head. The real issue is, are disclosures supposed to be made only to the board by the CEO, or is it to the general shareholders at large institutions? At what level, and what are the guidelines for disclosures themselves? Because let's go back 25 years of a listed company, 26 perhaps, and 20 years as a NASDAQ and New York listed company. I would expect profit warnings to come from time to time. There was only a 2001 famous statement by Narayan Murthy about fog on the windshield, which was in the nature of a profit warning. So Infosys is not as disclosure friendly a company as one might expect, in spite of the fact that Narayan Murthy, the co-founder of Infosys, was heading a SEBI committee on corporate governance. Having said that, let's say that Infosys by Indian standards is an excellent company with a strong culture of compliance.
Right.
But there are issues, and I have 20 years of experience covering Infosys. And I can tell you, I don't want to go into all of this today, it might sound a little awry, but they do play on the margins of disclosures. They do, for instance, err on the side of reticence. Even today, Nandan Nilekani's statement talks about making things public at an appropriate time.
Yeah.
That sounds very bureaucratic. So we need to find out when will that be. Going back to the Panaya acquisition and the exit of Vishal Sikka, my only conclusion looking back is that Vishal Sikka was ousted on grounds of business strategy or going towards the product side, rather than any violation of ethics, although the heat was turned on him.
No,
so
even culture, Madhavan, if you remember,
politics than governance.
yeah, if you remember, there was a lot of talk at that time of how he didn't fit into the Infosys culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are we?
Exactly. So the question is, was he brought in to turn? Was he brought in to turn things around, or was he a victim of some kind of a cultural gravity? Ousting, you know, it reminds me of Coca-Cola Classic being wound down and the old Coca-Cola coming back. So Infosys went back to IT services from a product-oriented strategy, and probably that's what Nandan Nilekani had in mind when he said that we are back to boring. services are boring, products are sexy, and maybe that's where it physical
Well,
will
nothing
fit in.
boring going on
But
at Infosys
as
right
a
now.
as a
Yeah.
let's assume I'm a shareholder, which I am not.
Yeah.
As a shareholder, I would want to know what happened to the Panaya acquisition follow through. We saw. It's like watching a Netflix series and suddenly being left without two
No season
episodes
two.
of the season
Okay.
because
Okay.
the director
Sriram
thinks that it's
Subramanian.
not worth seeing for you.
Okay.
No season 2. So we need to figure out,
Show got
let's be very
cancelled.
clear, disclosure
Okay.
culture
Sriram-
has to get
Sriram
better
Subramanian.
and there
Sriram
is something missing there.
Sriram Subramanian. So clearly the accusations are fairly serious. Some of them range about, talking disparagingly about colleagues and all of that. So that goes to, culture, etc. Some talk about, not disclosing actual costs, etc., which are more serious ones. But I want to also shift focus to what has been going on in Infosys. Again, you have Salil Parekh there, relatively, lesser time at the helm of affairs. And then you have these very serious accusations coming in. Would you have liked to see more transparency coming in from the company?
I think if one were to fault the company today, I think one can only fault it for not having put out the one pager or not having put out what they did yesterday, and the media coming out with a statement ahead of the company coming out with a statement. I think so one can only fault the company to that extent as of today, because the company had a chance on October 11th when the quarterly results were announced, when the audit committee was made aware of the whistleblower letter, etc. They could have just come out and put a single line statement, which they did yesterday evening, that there is a whistleblower complaint and the company is taking it very seriously. So I think because investors, mind you, hold Infosys to the highest standards, and so from that perspective there is greater scrutiny also of the company, and so the company, given also the fact that just 2 or 3 years ago has faced the same issue, should have been slightly more cautious. So from that perspective I think one can fault the company for today.
But meanwhile, the sharks are perhaps circling. There's a US law firm which is now looking at, drumming up people for a class action suit. There are different sets of rules and regulations there. I'm going to open up the debate. Mr. Roy, you want to come in on this aspect, and should Mr. Nilekani, worry about all of these issues as well, considering this is a company which is listed in America as well?
Yeah, there are two issues which, at the high level, which Nandan may like to look at effectively in this. The first one is, of course, this breach of corporate culture which has happened, which was set up by Narayan Murthy, Nandan and Mohandas Pai. And, it always starts with a nibble and then it becomes an avalanche later on, And I mentioned the Chanda Koshar case also, the tone of governance is set from the top. So this is the one large aspect, I think, which needs to be handled by him. I'm sure he will. The second one, of course, is the fact that what you mentioned about class action suits. I think it's too early for class action suits at the moment because none of these are substantiated yet, as we mentioned. They are serious. Some of them are serious. But again, the degree of seriousness is not quite evident from this letter at the moment. I mean, like I mentioned to you, there are pluses and minuses. But yes, a class action suit is the easiest way to make money for American lawyers. So this will happen at some point. I don't think it will happen so soon, but yes, that is a challenge. But the bigger challenge, Tamanna, is of course that, there are three defining companies in India which define the Indian financial markets. There are three: Reliance, Infosys and HDFC, for different reasons. And Infosys is for governance, right? Now, if you can't trust Infosys's numbers, who do you trust in India? That is the very large question which can lead to a derating of multiples, not only of Infosys, but later on, if it becomes serious, some others as well. So that is a larger issue, I think. But with Nandan being there, knowing him and his credibility and the way he works, I think it's still in safe hands. But yes, I guess they should have sort of disclosed this much earlier rather than coming through a press report.
So disclosure is one thing, and you can always argue on what is in the best interests of the company. Let's come in a bit of detail to the allegations and the seriousness of the allegations. Mr. Haribhakti, quick word from you. Mr. Roy said at the beginning that some of these could be frivolous, some of these you could put down to discretion or a style of managing a business, and some seem to be downright illegal. What is your view on the allegations themselves?
So my view is that every allegation should be investigated on its merit. And the biggest thing that Nandan has to do is to give full freedom to the investigation and do it in a manner that the diligence of the investigation can never be questioned. And the only thing that needs to come out is the real truth. That will determine what action must be taken. And I think it's too early to jump to any conclusion about class action, about wrongdoing, about illegality. All of these are pretty distant in my mind. We have dealt, in my life, I have dealt with so many whistleblower complaints, and when they are serious, we actually go deep into it to get to the bottom. And I'm sure that is what will happen. And we should await the result of that investigation.
All right. Just last word before I wrap very quickly from Madhavan. What would you like to see in the next few days that ensures there is no question that whatever comes out of this investigation is above board, and should the findings be made public?
I think more than the findings, the first important thing to realize is for Infosys that $6 billion have been wiped out of value. So are you trying to make the, trying to be too smart that you're shooting yourself in the foot? So a better culture of disclosure has to be brought in immediately, Godspeed, and that has to be done through quick fix announcements on the likely course of action, because a prima facie conclusion can be drawn even without forensic investigation. We are all mature people here. Jayesh Sangrajka has just quit as deputy CFO. Yeah. Everybody is looking at why is this happening just days after the quarterly results. Right. We need to figure out. I think if I were Nandan Nilekani, I'll quickly make some phone calls, call a quick meeting. The chairman has the right to do so, whether it's at the board level or at the CXO level, and try and immediately douse the fire. Once that fire is doused, you can put a better culture in place for both disclosures and at the same time ensure that there is no frivolous whistleblower culture in which career gaming can be done. Yeah. Also, please understand any good process also involves a degree of bureaucracy, and finance people talking about reviews being an issue could well be a matter of policy rather than propriety. And if a policy discretion by the CEO is seen as a violation of any good practice, it's a serious problem. You can't cramp the CEO's style. You need a mix of autonomy and accountability.
Yeah.
And
so Nandan Nilekani has got his task cut out for him. Yeah,
make it public.
Nandan's got his task cut out for him. For all you know, he's already started this process. You're speaking about Madhavan. I think one important thing to note is it's a good thing that the company has a healthy whistleblower policy. It's a good thing if more and more whistleblowers do come out and their allegations are looked at seriously. Maybe we can then avoid some of the situations we've seen in some other companies and banks even in corporate India. I want to thank all of you for joining us on debate number 1 this evening. I'm taking a very short break. When we come back, strap yourself in for a very fiery debate. We're talking about the government's plan for surveillance over social media. The Supreme Court will now hear the matter. What does it mean for fake news, hate speech, and your privacy? All of those aspects coming right up.